Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Hello, welcome to this week's journal entry. We have a guest that I've been so excited to bring on the show, Lauren Fondriest. Lauren is a women's dating coach who helps single millennial women who are ready to find their dream partner, but dating just isn't working for them. Through one-on-one coaching, Lauren supports women who have created their own amazing, vibrant lives to date with confidence and intention to find the love of their life. And honestly, this episode feels like a one-on-one coaching session, not just for me, but you're going to get so much value if you are dating. But she also gives really good tips for if you're married and wanting to have a thriving, growing relationship too. Lauren gives tips on the best thing to do early on in a relationship, what to ask yourself when you're waiting for a text from a guy, how to know what your needs are in a relationship, the difference between chemistry and compatibility, what it even means to date with intention and how to do it. And I share some stories about my past relationship and even dating that I've never shared before. This is a jam-packed episode that I know you're going to love. I do want to warn you the audio is a little bit funky, and I'm not quite sure why, so bear with me. But without further ado, let's listen in. Welcome back to Journal Entries, everybody, and welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to have you on. I feel like I've asked you 5 times, and then I realized I've never asked you. And I was like, this is a long time, way too long waiting for you to be on this show.
Yes, happy to be here.
So Lauren is here to talk to us about dating in your 30s, and we're going to go so much deeper than that. But this is the first episode where I'm kickstarting conversation starters before we dig in. And so I have the topic selected of relationships. I thought that would be perfect. And I'm just going to generate a question. All right. Do you prefer a large group of friends or a small group of friends?
Ooh, good question. I think this answer has actually evolved over the years. For many years, I love being in big groups. And now, as I'm well into my 30s, I've realized this year what matters most to me in friendships is having those close, intimate relationships where you can really be real with each other and share what's actually going on in your life and have more deep and meaningful conversations. I love when I feel like I can go deep with someone. So that's how I would define friendship today.
I love that. I just saw a quote on Instagram, or like, I don't know what it would be called, not a meme, but it basically said, "What's your best friend's favorite color?" And then the other person said, "I have no idea. I only know her childhood trauma."
Yes.
Something like that. I love that. So why don't you share with my audience a little bit about who you are and how you got into this field of relationships and dating?
Absolutely. So I'm a women's dating coach, and I help women date with intention to find their dream partner. So if you're someone who knows that you really want to be in a loving, committed relationship, but you're struggling with the dating process because who isn't? Dating is hard, right? That's exactly who I help. Help build self-love, more intention, really building out your magnetic energy so you can approach dating with a totally different mindset and feel empowered to find love on your own terms. So that's my role. And I got into dating coaching because I really struggled with dating myself before I met my husband. I was single and actively dating for a period of 6 years, between 27 getting out of a 2-year relationship and 33 when I met my husband. And it really took a toll on my mental health. I was constantly in a cycle of situationships, and I was tolerating a lot of poor behavior from the men that I was meeting because I really didn't know how to express what I wanted in a relationship or share my needs or my desires. And I was tolerating much less than I truly deserved. So there were a lot of mental shifts in there that allowed me to ultimately meet my husband and build the incredible relationship we have today.
I love that. I've got to say, I can't imagine 7 years of actively dating. That does sound like that alone sounds mentally exhausting. But then, like, being in the situationships and like the whole, like, the games almost, and like the emotional attachment in that, that's a lot, it seems like.
Yes. And I certainly burned out and took breaks throughout that process, but I had such a deep desire to be in a loving, committed relationship that I wasn't ever ready to let go of that goal. And I felt oftentimes like taking a break meant that I was giving up. Now, in hindsight, I would argue differently, right? Sometimes a break is really productive to be able to reset and focus on yourself. But at the time, I was used to going after goals. I was so ambitious, working my way up in the corporate world, running marathons, buying a home. I was going after all of my goals. And I realized that finding love, you have to approach it very differently because it's not like a regular goal where if you go through all the actions, you check everything off your list, then you run the marathon or you find a
Yeah.
new job.
Well, I can definitely relate to you because I feel like a lot of my listeners are in one of two camps. One, they're probably in their 30s and kind of like you were like looking for love, and it is one of their goals, and they're like trying to excel at work, and they've got all those other goals, like running like literally everything that you just said. Or they're more like me and probably divorced or like going through the divorce process, but like craving a supportive partner, and like but we're like mentally exhausted already, and but still wanting to find that. So what is like, how do you treat it differently and break through like the mental exhaustion that it feels like it is?
Yes, and I want to normalize that because dating can be really exhausting and frustrating for so many women. And I really hope that we can unite around that normal experience, but also find a way to feel more empowered and feel more joy in the dating process. I think there is something so special about dating in your 30s or after a divorce because you know so much more about yourself and your
Mm.
own needs and the lifestyle that you want to live, that you're bringing much more understanding about yourself into your search for a partner. This is a huge part of the intentional dating process, that you love yourself, you know what you need in a relationship. And when you know that, it's easier to ask questions on dates to uncover that earlier on rather than getting months or even years into a relationship and finally seeing that they aren't meeting your needs.
Mm. That definitely sounds almost more peaceful to date in that way, and definitely more joyful of like, that's right, I do know more about myself and I do know what I want, versus like in my 20s, I almost feel like we kind of talked about this beforehand, but like looks were very important, you know, definitely top of my list. Whereas now it's definitely, I mean, it's important, but I would much rather have a more stable connection, and like so many other things are higher up on the list, I would say.
Absolutely. Right. In our 20s, oftentimes we're chasing chemistry or
Mm,
chasing looks. And what we ultimately learn is that compatibility is so much more important for a committed, lasting relationship. And so when we weigh chemistry and compatibility, of course chemistry is still important, right? You want to feel that spark, that excitement with someone, and you focus more on compatibility, meaning Do they have the same value system as you? Do they want to live the same lifestyle as you? Are your goals complementary to each other? And do they have the same worldview as you? Right? These are the bigger questions that oftentimes in our 20s, we don't have enough maturity in ourselves to even know to look for those kind of things. And maybe we haven't figured that out for ourselves yet. So there's so much more wisdom that comes. And I love that you described it. It feels more calm and peaceful to date from that place of security within yourself rather than seeking that security in someone else, that you know what you want and you're just out there to find it, right? It's a much different energy than trying to prove your worth to someone and hoping that they like you.
Yes. Yeah, I remember feeling like I should have not those specific conversations because those are definitely elevated and I was not that mature before I got married, but even like the conversation about kids and politics and all of that before getting married, and I'd never even had those conversations beforehand.
Right. And you're seeing that now, that it's so important to be on the same page with those things before really getting invested with someone.
So what else goes into dating with intention?
For me, the foundation is always self-love. Really treating yourself well, understanding what your own needs are and being able to take care of them yourself. That's really the foundation. Then I talk about energy, because energy attracts like energy. So really thinking about, what is the inner narrative? What's the story you're telling yourself every day? Are you saying things like, there are no good men out there? Because if you believe that, then it will prove itself true for you. But if you believe that there are quality men that are the right fit for you that you could meet, then they'll appear for you. So there's so much around the energy and the narrative that you carry that helps attract aligned people into your life. And then I help women figure out, okay, how do we clear out your past dating patterns? Most of us have a lot to learn from how we dated in the past. And especially if you're coming out of a divorce, right? I'm sure you learned so much through that process about what you wish you had in a relationship. And that can really be your guidepost going into looking for your next love, to make sure that they can meet your needs and satisfy what you truly want in a loving relationship. And then I help women figure out, how do you want to put yourselves out there in an authentic way? And I'm your accountability buddy to help put you out there.
I love that. Yeah, I learned so much from my divorce in what I want for sure, but also what I wish I would have done. Like so many moments, and maybe it's because I'm a big journaler, but I would go back and like specific memories would pop up. And I was like, why did I tolerate that? Or why didn't I say this one thing? Or wanted to show up in this way or do this thing or not do this one thing. And I just reflected so deeply on how I showed up. And that's how I would want to show up and have a partner where I felt like I had that permission to show up in that way, you know?
Well, I love that you described that and how you're using the power of journaling, of course, to reflect on that in hindsight, that you know you can only control yourself, right? This is a lesson that many of us take years and years to learn. We can't control other people. And if something's not working, we have to look back at ourselves. This is what I had to do when I was 32, 33, and I said, dating isn't working for me. I'm the common denominator here. I know that I'm an amazing catch, but something that I'm doing in the way that I'm approaching dating is not getting me the results that I'm looking for. So I had to take a step back and say, how can I approach this differently? How can I shift my energy around this? So I love what you described about reflecting back about how you might have shown up differently. Is there anything specific that you'd want to share around how you might show up differently in the future?
Yes. So one time, and it was when we were not even engaged yet, so we were still dating. And I must have been like maybe 24, 25 maybe. And there was something that my boyfriend at the time was doing and did, and I just wasn't really into it. And I brought it up to him. I brought up the conversation, which I was really nervous to do, but I did it. And I remember being met with just like, oh, like just that's silly. Don't even talk about it. And then he like just kind of shut down the conversation. And then I remember the next day I brought it up again and I was like, you know what? I'm willing to move past this. Don't like, just as long as we don't do this going forward. And he again responded with like, oh, well, I did nothing wrong. And from that moment forward, learned that I cannot talk about this thing with him. I don't bring it up. Yet I spent the entire relationship still not liking this thing. And I just like didn't bring things up with him. And it became a thing. Like I just don't bring things up. And that experience too, he just didn't talk about it at all. And I just started walking on eggshells around him. And he just kind of shut me out. And that was our whole relationship. I knew back then that like I shouldn't have been with a partner like that. But for some reason, I was like, yeah, but we're not arguing. It's not like we're not fighting all the time, bickering all the time. And yeah, I didn't have the courage at that point to be like, yeah, but there's so many other people that like, I don't know, would treat you this way and not this way and whatnot.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. I mean, the fact that you put yourself out there to address something with him and he shut it down twice, right? And that's such a challenging experience to go through, especially in the way that your body naturally reacts to it. You say, oh, it's no longer safe for me to bring up things that are important to me, that I want to change, things that aren't sitting right with me. And that compounds itself across your relationship, as you described.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so curious, in that moment when you were trying to bring that up and you felt shut down, what was going on in your body? Did you have some kind of somatic reaction to that?
Yeah, I think that I always tend to feel things in my stomach, like that pit in my stomach. And also kind of like a racing in my chest, like my heart going a little bit faster and my palms get sweaty because it's like I want to say something and I kind of work up the courage to say the thing, but I'm like nervous to say it. So I'm on that edge of like, do I say something? Do I not? And then I remember I like went to work that day and I was wondering like, again, do I say something? Do I not? How do I approach this once I decided I did want to bring it up again? And I did bring up more things throughout the rest of our relationship, but it always ended in the same exact way.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. And it's so interesting noticing how your body reacts to that, right? The pit in your stomach, the racing heart. And of course, there are situations that will do that for any of us.
Mhm.
I think in our world today, we're so trained to just think in our heads. And there are so many other sources of wisdom from our bodies, from our
Yeah.
gut, from our heart, right? Listening to all of those signals that your body is giving you, saying something's not quite right here. How do I feel about this, right?
Mm.
And how do I want to respond? And how do I want to navigate the relationship accordingly? And I
Yeah.
think the earlier on that we can train ourselves to listen to those body signals and hear our intuitive wisdom that our bodies naturally give us, we can tell so much earlier on, is this relationship right for me? Do I want to continue and go deeper? Or is something not quite right here? I need to address it.
Mhm.
And I talk so much with my clients about building that self-trust, because when we go into dating so desperately wanting to be with someone, oftentimes we mute our self-trust and we mute our intuition, and we're not listening to those little signals early on. And then down the road, we say, oh my gosh, I knew way
Yeah.
back when that wasn't the right relationship for me. So in the early dating process, I think the best thing that we can do is tune into ourselves and see, well, how did I feel on that date? How do I feel when I'm with them? How do I feel when I'm not with them? And maybe I'm not hearing from them. And do I like that? So often we want to ask why. Well, why haven't they texted me back?
Yeah.
Why am I not sure if they're going to reach out to me or not, or if I'm going to see them again? And there could be a million reasons why. I know that's such a natural human inclination, but what's so important is to turn it back on yourself and say, well, okay, this is what's happening. How do I feel about it? And if it's not feeling in alignment with how you want to feel in a relationship, and you don't feel that there's room to have a conversation or address that in a healthy way, then, right, cut it off faster. The ability to end relationships that aren't going in the direction that you want faster is so powerful. It's like taking the control back and really making you feel much more empowered in the process.
I love that. And I have a question for you. So this is a question of like, is it me or is it them type of thing?
Sure.
So I've done very minimal dating, I'll say that, since I've been divorced. But there is always that thing of like, is he going to text me back? And I've had two types of situations with different types of guys. And one is like, I am wondering when they're going to text me back, and it doesn't feel good. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm almost like waiting for them to text me. And I feel like I'm always like texting them. And if I'm not, I'm thinking that they're waiting for my text and whatnot. But then there's other guys that I've dated, not even dated. I've only ever gone out on like 3 dates maximum with one person. But anyways, and it just feels like it's more casual, where like I'll text him when I'm free, he'll text me when I'm free. Do you think that it's like what with that other type of guy where it's like he's waiting for my text, I'm waiting for his text? Is that like my internal emotions, or is that like my body saying like, this guy like isn't bringing out the right, traits or characteristics or whatever in you?
Ooh, such a good question. I wonder, what's happening in this dating relationship that's bringing up some kind of anxious attachment in you? That's a bigger question, right? So I'll just let you sit with that. And it could be maybe something related to your childhood, right? And how you received love from your parents. It could be triggering some other kind of wound, right, that you've had in your relationships or in your life, where you're maybe more desperate to hear from them and wanting that validation or that attention. Okay, so that's one component of this to think about. Another component to think about could be, how does it feel, right? When you're with them, when you're communicating with them, does it feel like it's going in a direction that you want a relationship to go? Or is there something that doesn't feel quite right that maybe it's worth a conversation with them? Maybe it's, hey, I'd love to communicate a little bit more often. Could we text every day, or could we talk on the phone a couple times a week, right? And getting clear on what would help make you feel more invested in the relationship and more certain that they're giving mutual energy. Okay. And then another component to look at this is, are you outsourcing your security here? So when I say security, think about that safety in your body, that certainty that I'm going to be okay no matter whether this works out or not. And sometimes for women to recreate that security in yourself could mean going and doing something just for yourself. Go take care of yourself, right? Go do a workout, go to a yoga class, fill out your journal, right? Do something that you're pouring energy and attention back into yourself to create that security in yourself, so you're not outsourcing that to someone that you're waiting for a text back from. That can help alleviate some of the anxious worry that comes up with it.
Brings me back to another thing that you said about dating with intention. You said taking care of your own needs first, like doing it yourself. And I remember when my therapist said, like, what is it that you need? And I literally looked at her like a deer in headlights, like, needs? Oh my gosh, I don't know what I need. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious for the women listening, if this is like the first time that they're like, oh, what do I need in a relationship? What are like some of those basic needs? What do you find that like the women that you work with are needing?
Yes, yes. So the first thing is learning how to tune into yourself and really like getting still and thinking, okay, what would make me feel really good right now? Practice this just on your own in your alone time. And then thinking about it in a relationship, right? Oftentimes needs might be around how are you communicating with each other in terms of frequency, in terms of depth? Are you building emotional intimacy with each other? A need could look like how often you're seeing each other. And is it quality time together, or is it just, getting FaceTime together? It could even look like, I need to spend the night at my own place because I have a dog that I need to take out. So I can't spend the night at your house. Things like that, right? It could apply to any part of your life, something that's important to you to make you feel good and make you feel taken care of. So I'll share an example in my own relationship. So when I have been struggling with anxiety, I had a tendency to go to my husband right away. And I'll admit, I was sometimes dumping all my anxiety on him. And that became an issue for us. It wasn't fair to put him in that role. And I realized sometimes I need to take care of that need myself first. So when I start to experience anxiety, I will pause and tune into myself and say, what do I need right now? What would help make me feel better? And sometimes it's taking a walk outside by myself. Sometimes it's getting sunshine or listening to a song or writing in my journal or meditating. It could look different every time, but only by tuning into myself am I going to know what I need in that moment. So this is a lifelong practice of tuning back into yourself and figuring out how can I meet my needs. And then I'm able to go back to my husband and say, hey, here's what I experienced. Maybe I want to talk it through with him and get someone to listen, right, to what I'm experiencing. But I don't need him to solve it for me. I don't need him to manage it for me.
I feel like it sounds like you'd have so much more productive conversations that way than just like dumping all of that anxiousness on him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, he's my partner. I still look to him for emotional support, but not 100% of it, right? I had to find that in myself. So I wasn't putting too much of that as a burden on him because it was creating an issue for us. And every relationship is going to have, your own balance of things like that. So it definitely is a practice of coming back to yourself and taking care of yourself because you can't put all of that on one person.
So I want to ask you about journaling, but I think we'll end with that. And I want to honor the listeners that I have that aren't married. Do you have any advice on how you're able to? I just feel like you have such an open like communication and like thriving marriage. Is there anything that you guys do, any rituals that you have that like keep you on the same page and keep you like growth focused and all of that?
Yes, such a good question. And this intentional practice continues into marriage, right? It is an everyday practice. We choose to be in relationship with each other every single day. We don't go on default mode. We don't want to take each other for granted. Now we're about 2.5 years into our marriage, so hopefully we'll keep going with that. But what's been really important for us is constantly working on our communication and having a growth mindset with each other. We have relationship check-ins where it's a safe space to bring up anything that we want about how our relationship is feeling, or, you know, what we need to work on together. So I think creating some safe spaces to have those relationship conversations with each other is really important.
Mm. Yeah, I saw you post something on Instagram about that, about like what you talked about maybe. And I was like, that's what I want in a future partner, is like those conversations, because never in a
Yeah.
million years would I have done that with my past partner.
Yeah. Right. And again, that's the beauty of dating later, right? Either
Mm.
post-divorce or into your 30s or beyond, is that maybe you've had more experience having those deeper conversations, more meaningful conversations about how do you solve a problem together in a productive and healthy way, right? There's that healthy conflict element to it.
Hmm.
And also, I was resonating earlier with what you were saying around how, oh, maybe we didn't fight, right, in your marriage, but there were conversations that weren't happening, or that weren't happening in
Yeah.
a healthy, productive, open way. And I experienced something similar in my relationship in my 20s, where we never fought, but it was very surface level. We never talked about anything really deep or meaningful or future oriented. And to me, that felt like such a loss. I was like, something's missing here. I know that I am meant for a bigger love, like a deeper love. I want a true partner, a true companion, someone that I can have emotional intimacy with. And now, when I was 27, I could not articulate all that. I've learned a lot since then. But I knew in my soul that I wanted a bigger, more expansive love. And so I
Mm.
broke off that relationship because it wasn't going in that direction. And I put myself out into the unknown, meaning dating, single, right? Not knowing when I would find my partner. And that was really, really scary for me. It really took a toll on my mental health. But I learned so much about how to date in a healthier way, that my mission now is to help teach and coach other women to date in a healthier way, so they can hopefully avoid some of that heartbreak and misunderstandings and unmet needs or unmet expectations, and really approach it differently from the beginning to find a partner who feels really aligned, that you can have that deep, intimate, incredibly loving and committed partnership with.
That just sounds so fulfilling. So
Yes.
I know that you journaled all of the things that you wanted in your dream partner, or what did you call it?
Yes. So I've been a journaler my whole life. So I found my journal from maybe 2019, before I met my partner. And so I created a list, of course, but this was not, oh, he's tall, he has brown hair, kind of a list. I called it what I want in a dream lover.
That's it.
And literally number one on the list is energetic alignment. Someone who is positive, high energy that I fuel off of. The number two was self-awareness, who has values and they value personal development. Number three was communicates openly and listens respectfully. Oh my gosh, there's so many good ones on here. But what I'm giving is the flavor of the depth here.
Mm.
That we need to change our lists from he's tall and has, brown hair, has a good job, to how does he make you feel in a relationship? And is that soul-filling, life-giving, energy-lifting love that we are truly, truly meant to experience in this lifetime?
So I have to tell you something, because I made
Okay.
a list, and
Yes.
it did include things like you were saying, like it had like someone I feel confident talking to, bringing up tough topics and working through them together. He does the same for me, mutual respect, no judgment. That's funny. That's literally what we were talking about, like bringing up tough
Right,
topics.
right. Oh
So
my gosh.
I had those things. And then I had this huge realization earlier this year. Well, it's January when we're recording this, so last year. And it was that dating has felt like so heavy for me, and picturing myself with someone has felt like a burden. Like it's going to be like, oh gosh, like, having somebody come home from work after their work day, then it's going to feel like, then I have to like kind of go back to what I was doing, like managing
Mm,
their emotions and managing now his dinner as well as my son's and mine. And like, just like the heaviness of what it used to feel like rather than like the ease that it could be. And so I
mm,
went back to my list and I was like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. And I
right.
added in things like, um, where was it? Like one thing I used to have was he plans full dates from start to finish, which I still like, but then I added in something like he he's the one to schedule in recurring appointments. Like he adds in my dentist appointments and my son's without even asking me. So like making
Yeah.
my life easier, things like that.
Yes. Yes. I love that you're able to notice the difference here between feeling heavy because that's what you experienced before versus feeling ease and knowing that that is possible, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be heavy. It doesn't have to feel heavy. So I think here, maybe finding your expanders, finding your role models or examples of relationships that bring that ease, bring that comfort, bring that feeling taken care of that you're describing, so you can see that it's possible. I share about my own relationship just as evidence of what's possible. So my husband recently switched jobs. He now goes into the office while I'm working from home. And when he comes home, first it's a little love fest with the dog, jumping on him. But then he takes his own time, 15 minutes, just to quietly unwind and regulate his own emotions. And then he's often the one cooking most of our dinners, which is incredible. So every
Yeah.
couple finds their way that works for them. And so, I like to share evidence of what's possible,
Yeah.
that we do light each other up. And I always look forward to spending time with him and having meaningful conversations with him because it really feels fulfilling for me.
I love hearing stories like that because, yeah, my default is just to what I'm used to for the past. That
Right.
was like a 12-year relationship of dating and marriage. And my experience was like I was the one that worked from home. So I was the one to cook. And so on my dream partner
Mm-hmm.
list, it was like, even though I work from home, my partner is excited, comes home energized rather than, exhausted from the day. And he's excited to cook for us and whatnot. So
Yes.
I love that proof because, yeah, you're right. The proof is like, oh, like, not only is it a desire, but it exists. Like, there are men out there that want to do that, and they are doing that already.
Exactly. And that's the thing is that women often get caught up in a pattern of saying if they identify and own what they want, they say, "Oh, that's too much. Oh, I could
Mm.
never find that. That's not real. That doesn't exist." Well, if you look, right? If you put that out there, put that desire out there, you can find it. It does exist. It's just a matter of weeding out the ones that aren't aligned with what you're looking for.
Yes. So I know that you have a challenge coming up. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, I'm so excited to be launching my dating identity mini challenge. So this is running from February 10th through 14th. I will be popping in your inbox for 5 days with little video lessons sharing my intuitive insights about how to shift your dating identity, meaning shifting out of that doubt, people pleasing. Am I too much? Do I want too much? Into really an empowered and embodied identity and mindset around attracting the type of partner that you want. So it's really quick little challenges you can implement and integrate what you're learning right away. So I would invite all of our listeners to join me for the Dating Identity Mini Challenge, and we'll share the link.
That sounds like something I need, so I know I'm going to be signing up for that. But yeah, I'll include the link to that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share with our listeners, Lauren?
I would just say that if finding true committed love is something that you deeply desire, keep going. It is absolutely possible for you. We're showing all the proof and evidence today that what you want is worth it. You are worth it.
And not just that, but I feel like from this episode, you've at least brought me from feeling, I even opened this episode feeling like it is exhausting to date. And now I'm like, it feels joyful and empowered and way happier. So thank you for your time and your expertise today.
Yes, thank you so much, Sam.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.